Hey, welcome to another Future podcast. Today I'm in Detroit in Eastern Market, and I'm talking about a company that makes a really cool app that helps you find street art. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is Brandt here without Sandesh Patel today. Welcome to another Future podcast. Now, many people are familiar with the street art of Banksy, but all over the world, artists are using the urban landscape as a public gallery. Many cities have become known for their street art. Cities like Barcelona, New York, Detroit, Chicago all have vibrant art scenes. Detroit has used it as a way to fight back urban blight and to create a real draw for tourists. This art is by nature ephemeral. Buildings get demolished, weather takes its toll, and murals get painted over. And this is why an app like CANVS can be so valuable. They are chronicling and preserving these works. So today we have with us Ralph Andre, co-founder of CANVS, to tell us what inspired him, how it all works, and what the future holds. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. So, like I was mentioning to you, I over the Thanksgiving break, I went to Detroit, which for people who haven't been to Detroit is renowned for its mural art and street art and on the buildings. Yep. And it's become a way, like I mentioned, to sort of fight back that urban blight and, give new life to some of these neighborhoods. And it's a really interesting tourist draw. But the range of work, and these artists are not just local artists. They're artists from all over the world coming to paint these murals. Some very famous artists. One of my favorites, Brandt. I love his stuff. It's like he's all over the place down there. So it was really cool. And so when I found your app, I saw a news article. Somebody did an interview about the scene and what's happening, and I'm like, oh, that's us. We go to every Thanksgiving we go to Detroit and we just like mural hunt all day. So they're here now. Finally, is a tool for us to do that, right? And I mentioned the sort of ephemeral nature of it. We see some of our favorites now getting into an advanced state of decay. And it's really unfortunate because there's some just really phenomenal art, but it's temporary by nature. So we had a great time. The family had a great time using this. It was a great adventure to go and explore the city and a great way to explore art and all that. But before we talk all through all of that stuff, tell me a bit about who you are, where you came from, like why you decided to create CANVS and what was the idea behind it?
Yeah. My background, it's heavily sort of bounded by creativity and ideas. Since I was young, first generation American, growing up in this country, I've always found myself, kind of in between two worlds, being Haitian American. And I think the cultural, influences that sort of surrounded me sort of helped shape who I am, and also helped me be okay with challenging, myself in terms of how I see the world and how the way I see the world kind of translates into the designs that I create. And that's what inspired me to become a designer, coming from the thread of graphic design and evolving into creative direction, paired with user experience design, which is a heavy backbone that came a little later in my career, about maybe 10 years ago when I started designing digital products. Even before they even, the term UX was even used, I found myself, being very, very in love with digital experiences, paired with my, experience from, art direction and creative direction.
Well, and I got to imagine, like you must do a lot of sourcing of artists in your line of work. And, this rolls right into all these artists because murals is not the only thing they do, right? There.
No, absolutely. And it is graphic design that got me into art. When I was shooting a lot of street photography at the time, and that came out of the need to shoot my own photos for my own campaigns that I was working on from a design standpoint. I was tired of like Getty's and all these other, Photoshops or photography studios, and I wanted to come up with my own. And I found myself shooting a lot of street photography, and through street photography, I found myself shooting a lot of, you guessed it, street art. And I'm shooting a lot of these street art murals while I'm shooting these streets. And I'm having conversations with the artists I'm having conversations with the people in the community, and I'm having these great talks with them. And a lot of these street artists, they're also designers as well. They do graphic designs. So they come from the graphic design thread, a lot of them, and a lot of ones that I've met at the time. And my UX design mind kicked in because I'm noticing a problem, or rather an unmet need. There's an abundance of street art in cities like my hometown, Jersey City, and of course New York City. And there's like sort of a limit to how people can interact and engage with the murals. They see the murals, they take a photo and post it on Instagram, and they keep it moving. And remember, this was about 5 or so years ago. And I found myself sitting on stacks of photography as a mural hunter, which I became at that point. And I created an interface that helps people find these murals, specifically in Jersey City. It was meant to be a Jersey City thing only. That's how the app was created. I partnered up with an iOS developer who loved the idea. And it was like the perfect marriage between a dope designer and a rad, iOS developer. And the CANVS app, at that current point was born in Jersey City.
To take sort of your passion and to turn it into, something that a greater audience can use is a cool thing.
Oh yeah, total hobby at that point. It was just I just love mural hunting. I still mural hunt. I still find time to just hit up a city and just snap some photos. But that hobby was just, I was addicted to it. I just love finding out more information about these murals, and this is what inspires like the data that we could talk about in a bit around CANVS, like how to really take these murals and create these layers of insights that cities can sort of consume, and even artists and the general public can consume, and help them learn more about their appetites in art, the city's appetite in art, and how the city sort of responds to the art that's in their respective communities. It's really, really cool stuff.
I've taken some photos around my town, but like my wife and I, when we go on vacation, we were in Barcelona. We literally just crawled through the barrio and just took photos of like every piece of street art. And we do that all the time in different places we are, because some of it's just so amazingly good. And we've even we even have some of the artists in our house, hanging on the wall too, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
So tell me about why you thought this was such an important thing and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but why was this so important for you to create? And like, what is this going to do for everyone?
I mean, it's pretty clear. Like, art, especially art in the public, is the representation of that sort of cultural, footprint of a particular city. I think people like art, of course. Obviously, people like the visual aspect of art. But from what I observed at the time, people want a little bit more. People want to be a part of the culture. And particularly with street art, they want to participate in it. Because not only street art is just art in the public, but street art is the gateway to the art experience for a lot of people. You think of that one person who was not into art in any respective way. Maybe they see it on TV, or maybe some kind of ad or something like that. That's about it. But when they see a mural in their respective neighborhoods or a cool city that they experience, they stop. And that's the entry point right there, because from there, they find out who's the artist, whether it's through Instagram or you find a handle, you look it up in any way. And then from there, you follow that artist. And that's how it works. That's how it started with me. I follow the artist, I stay in touch with them. And then eventually, if that artist is hosting a show, selling some merch, selling art, anything, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to want to, I want to purchase that art. I want to patronize. I want to be a part of it. And I'm not even talking about the festivals. There's a lot that is imbued within street art culture beyond just what's on the wall. And for CANVS, we're using technology to help facilitate that interaction between people and their respective communities. The implications of street art is massive. I'm talking from tourism, community growth, commerce. Like, everybody in any respective neighborhood is affected by street art in some sort of way.
Well, and I think this is a great, to highlight, because the one thing, you see the street art, but you don't know anything about what the art is about necessarily, or who's doing it, or the artist. And a lot of these artists, they have to eat and they have to make money, and like painting murals is not the only thing they do. And I know you're in sort of the creative side, so creative people buy a lot of art too. So it's a great vehicle to help get them more work too, I'd imagine, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, with the canvas, I mean, I wanted people to just know who's these artists, who are these artists that's creating the work. I mean, the beginning was just a list of observations, but one of the ones that really stuck to me is a lot of artists, they do some amazing work. You'll be surprised. You go on Instagram and you see some amazing artists, and a lot of times they often go, their work often goes unknown. So, I wanted to support my artist friends and create a way for them to get recognized at a global scale. And that's one part of it, but it sort of evolved into something bigger. And that's when it sort of moved away from the hobby. Like I'm just messing around and having fun. My artist is letting me know, hey, dude, someone called me and said they found me on the CANVS app. Like which still happens. But I think the mission sort of evolved at that point into this, digitization of street art at a national and global level. Street art comes and goes. So, our job is to document it and use that information to empower cities to drive more art activity.
Tell me about how CANVS works. I've used it and I've gone out and done it, and I'm actually now going to be participating in the back end because I've photographed some art in my town. I haven't gotten it uploaded yet because I still got to do some research on some of the artists.
Awesome.
But explain how it all works and how it all comes together, like what the user experience is.
CANVS at its current state right now is the CANVS app. That's what everybody knows. The CANVS app is an interactive tool that maps murals in different cities. It can't get any more straightforward than that. And that's the CANVS app there.
Well, and I know like it's got a hunt mode and a not hunt mode. So like when you turn on hunt mode, if you in any proximity to a piece of art, it throws an alert.
Right. It'll send you a notification when you're within 150 feet of a mural. So, and then that's the tool is the key word in that. It's a really cool tool to help you, organize the murals that you find. So when you find a cool mural, you could bookmark it, save it for later. You could mark the ones you've seen. So there's a little check mark on each mural detail page. And you hit a check mark, and that pretty much tells like, hey, I've seen this mural. And there's this little tracker that kind of shows you all the murals that you've captured on the CANVS platform. It's really cool because it represents the future state. It represents what we're trying to really, really do, right? And that's into things like gamification and making it really fun when you check into a mural. What does it really mean to be that mural hunter or that city explorer that has seen so many murals in different cities? What type of rewards you get? What type of experience? What type of connections you can make with other people? So what we're doing right now is just the baseline of what's to really, really come. The CANVS platform is, like I mentioned, the CANVS app. And we have the CANVS web, and that's our sort of early beta of the crowdsourcing environment. So originally the CANVS app was my photos, all hundreds of them, spread throughout. And at a certain point, I was like, hey, gotta find a way to invite.
Yeah, that doesn't scale.
That doesn't scale. And it's not as much fun. At a certain point, I started to meet other mural hunters, to really awesome, mural hunters, and, seeing how they're doing it. I'm like, wow, just like me. So, it inspired me to open up our platform. And by then, this is when I, connected, with my right now, my co-founder, my partner, Lauren. And we had a lead developer that built out the framework that is, as it stands right now, our crowdsourcing environment, which is the CANVS web. So you can log in, upload murals, and it will display across the platform. So the CANVS app, CANVS web, which is the crowdsourcing environment. And then there's also our interactive, mural maps. These are our API deployments. This is us taking our technology and injecting it into the websites of different cities. And we've launched 5 successful mural maps. And these are cities that are looking to have their own CANVS app on their website, like what we did with Detroit. So those are the 3 sort of buckets of our platform.
For the cities to have that is really neat. But I think the API piece of it is also really interesting because I could see, like when Apple eventually does come out with whatever AR glasses they're going to come out with, like to have Apple just feeding this right into your view. So as you're walking around, you're getting all the murals or you're identifying it.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
cool.
Apple, if you're listening, you need to talk to Ralph and get that going because I'm on it.
No, there's so many. I mean, it's like sometimes, and I'll tell you, like I kind of get like overwhelmed because the possibilities are so huge. There's so many things. And especially like with like myself and my partner, Lauren, like we are so keen into the market. We have like long conversations about the market, the direction, whether it's the art market, tech generally, emerging market. Like we think about all these possibilities and we look at what we have with CANVS and to see the multitude of directions where this can go. It's really, really exciting. And it's just a matter of us to take those steps down that roadmap in order to see what's working and what's not as we kind of find our way into that product market fit zone.
Walk me through a little bit of like, the process. So like one thing I found was like I had my good camera and I had my iPhone.
Right.
And, one of the things that's interesting about street photography is there's a lot of things in the way. I've noticed, you've got bridges
trees.
and trees and you've got dumpsters and you've got shadows everywhere. And, surprisingly, I think my iPhone actually might have done a better job of capturing all that than my good camera in a strange way.
Yeah. The cameras, like the iPhone cameras are unbelievable because they process all that information. So it's pretty much baked in and ready to go off the bat.
Well, they do all the HDR stuff, and the thing is also then you get the geolocation with it, which is nice.
Right.
That's so it's kind of like a one-stop. So I was finding myself taking with both cameras to see what would end up best. We'll have to see when I finally get it uploaded.
I was literally doing that yesterday because my I have a Sony A7 III, and when I'm hunting, like I do the iPhone because it's always with me, but sometimes I want to get that money shot, like that perfect photo. So I bring the big boy out, I get the camera out, the A7 III, and the A7 III doesn't have GPS, embedded. You got to get a dongle to be attached to it. But I find myself shooting just a regular shot with my phone just to get that location, and then I'll shoot in I'll tell you, like
that's exactly what I do too.
This is like mural hunting, like stories, man. This is what we all do.
My son was really enjoyed like geocaching, and this is sort of the art version of geocaching. In fact, he started off, "Are we going to go geocaching?" I'm like, well, yes, for art.
I love when kids asking that. Like, that's the funny part. Dad, we're going to geocaching.
Well, he knew we were going to drive around and look for stuff and use GPS. He was excited about that.
That's awesome.
I got to imagine, like just from taking photos, because one thing I noticed too is when I was doing that, I had so many conversations with people. It was crazy. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing? Like, oh, I'm taking this, and there's this app, and chronicling all this stuff. It's cool. So it's a great conversation piece, but I got to imagine you've got some really fun stories of people who just both, looking at the murals and hunting them, and then those who are taking the pictures as well, right?
Oh yeah. Like so many, in fact, I want to work on a series, kind of sharing different stories around mural hunters, and some of their journeys around capturing, street art. Like it's some really great stories around like the things that you do to get that shot, like, trespassing and climbing through like warehouses and like, being chased by police, a ton of stories, it being like, getting into like this sort of gang graffiti sort of environment. Like I've heard so many great stories, and I wanted to find a way to maybe like broadcast that. And that's the thing that we're also doing with CANVS, like coming up with street art driven content that helps sort of draw people to the culture and eventually obviously our platform as well.
Good podcast material.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I was one of those guys, like me and my me and my partner Daryl, we snuck into a warehouse in Jersey City and we wanted just a cool, dope place to take some like awesome shots, and there's some great graffiti in there too. So
yeah.
We're climbing through gates. I'm like holding the gate over. He's climbing under, and I'm just, it's don't do that as much. I don't do that as much anymore. I don't do that anymore at all. But
wink, wink,
wink, wink. Yeah.
Not all street art is legal art. too. And not all street art
Yeah.
is entirely credited, right? Because there is some stuff out there that's like really amazing, but it's, rogue art,
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you identify those? Like, what's the mechanism for, finding those people?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, Canvas in itself is more directed towards, commission mural art, heavily spray paint art. And that's what I started shooting. I found the graffiti artists, a lot of them either didn't care or didn't want their stuff to be sort of, captured or documented. And naturally, I just veered away from that. And especially because like the murals itself, like I wanted to, help share the stories of the art itself,
Right.
And I always say this, like the stories, there's way more stories embedded in murals versus graffiti. Graffiti, the stories around graffiti are much richer around its creation, like how it was created, what did that graph writer do to get there, who got this. Like I think those stories are like you could make a whole like 10-season series about it, 20 episode per season type, So, but I for Canvas itself, we veer towards commission murals, and the cadence has been set. So when you go into Canvas app, you see that, and when you become a mural hunter, that's what that's what you're going to be adding naturally. It just sort of flowed naturally. There was no instance where we found people adding like throw ups and random tags. Most are commission murals.
Well, and I imagine when an artist gets popular enough, like a Banksy, who's still doing illegal street art, you can identify him. I don't know if you saw the article recently with Banksy where there was a Guess store that acquired a wall where he had painted something and moved it into their store. And that made Banksy rather irritated. So he posted it and he said, hey, go feel free to steal everything from this store.
Sick 'em, boys. That is vintage Banksy right there. That is, I love that story because like there's a part of me that there's like a little part of me that wanted to see what would have happened. Like, but they pulled out and they sort of saved their ass on that one.
Yeah, they turned really quick on that one.
Yeah, he's the biggest at this point, like the biggest street artist in the world right now. Like it's he or them, like if it's a group of them or not, like it's Banksy is it's a powerhouse.
It's definitely a phenomenon. And I love and I think the thing that's interesting about this too, and we talked about how it's sort of ephemeral art. It's not meant to be permanent, and it's art that has this sort of shelf life to it. And I think Banksy has always embraced that. I mean, he had that one picture that when it was sold at auction, it just shredded it, which I thought just is amazing just statement. It's like, you can't, my art is my art and it's for everybody. It's not for you.
Right. Because like a lot of these, these corporations and they try to exploit his art. I mean, they exploit street art, period. Like so many artists, are getting screwed, or not even screwed, but just like, just being taken advantage of. Their work is being used to help other companies, help other corporations make money. And they obviously try to do that with Banksy and they always lose every time. And I think that the table has turned around that. I think a lot of these companies are more aware. They're more aware of the implications and implications of their actions, which is huge. And I think that's the first step. Because I think the thing with me that really bothers me about art is just that I feel like there's still not enough respect, especially for artists. I was literally just talking to a street artist last week about how she was approached by a property owner and, that person was talking about having them do work just for like exposure, and I've seen that as a designer. I used to get that all the time. Yeah, this you cook up this amazing design for me, and this could be a piece you could put in your portfolio, which is very insulting. And I think it's just crazy. And this artist has been doing this for years. It's not like some young, scrappy, So I think that type of respect, I still feel like it's not at the level that it needs to be. And with the popularity of street art at this point, like street art is highly, highly popular. The overall culture has dramatically risen over the last 10 years or 10 plus years. I think they're going to get the respect that they deserve, but I think there's still going to be those awkward moments. And this is what, again, back to Banksy. I love how Banksy always, if someone tries to check him, he kind of blocks and knocks you right back out. Like like step back. And he checks you in very creative ways. Like it's a spectacle,
Yeah,
and
no
it's
doubt.
embarrassing for you know whomever's on the other side.
So many times in artistic endeavors, it's like, well, you do it for the love, so you should do it for free. It'll be exposure, and I don't think people really, like you say, appreciate it. I mean, it happens in photography. Oh, come take my wedding.
All
It'll be a
creative.
great exposure for you, or come play, a show at my bar for free because it'll be great exposure for your band. And it's like, it takes, it's work. And when as an artist, you feel bad if you take that, because then you're, setting a precedent that screws over all the other artists out there too, right?
Exactly, and that's what we're talking about too. Me and that artist, it's huge. You're screwing everybody else over. Here's how you do it the right way. This is 2017. The Canvas app was rolling, great. I didn't have a team, and it was just me rocking out. And I always had like a network of designers that we collaborated on different ideas, and we executed different ideas. So I came up with with a collective. It's the Canvas Collective. Still to this day now, it's a group of creatives, designers, photographers, programmers, technologists, installationists, accountants. Like there's all these different folks that we come together. And we're a team. We have like quarterly meetings, and no one's getting paid. But the big thing about that is that I personally measure everyone's goals. And that's what I do with anyone's working with Canvas, even the developers who are working on Canvas right now. I measure your goals. I measure your intent. I measure what you're looking for. I measure it very, very closely, so that what I'm able to offer you, it's highly valuable. Whereas these guys, when it comes to the example of the artist, they don't measure that. You don't know what that measures for the artist. You don't know if that's deemed valuable for the artist. You don't even have a conversation around value to measure that properly. And I think for me, it has worked really well for me, because I work really closely with everybody on the team. And I know everyone's goals and what they're looking to do into the future, where they're trying to grow, what success are they trying to look, what does success look like, period, for them. And I use Canvas and my resources, my network, the overall sort of Canvas community to help them grow. And everyone who's been part of Canvas at this point, and I think we're like at like 10 or 11 or something like that, everyone who's been in Canvas has gotten amazing jobs, big opportunities, just by virtue of being part of this project, which makes me really, really happy. And I've worked with a lot of them on their resumes, and getting a lot of, especially the juniors, in that position. And I think that's the real way you provide value for people, even if it's not fully compensated. At least, ask them what they want, and does this work for you? And if
Right.
that does, let's write and create something great.
I love the idea of a big collective and the community that you're fostering. What so what's next for Canvas? Like, where do you go from here? Like, what are your priorities next?
The big one is Canvas 2.0. That's what I'm really, really excited about. That is the the complete redesign of the Canvas app, top to bottom.
Oh, wow.
And we are bringing some amazing features, and some of them I can't talk about, but one I could tell you for sure, it's gonna create a really strong bridge between art fans and artists. Like, if the Canvas app at this current point right now helps people find the artists, find their social media, learn their bios, we're going to create rich relationships with the artists, so that they can learn more about their fans and their art than they would ever even know. And gamification too, having some injected gamified experiences that helps, because that's what mural hunting is. It's kind of a game.
Right.
And the psychology of a hunter is, you're doing it actually all of them are doing it as a hobby, right?
Right.
Some at bigger name hunters are getting hired by festivals to come and shoot. But for the most part, it's a hobby, and you're doing it for fun. And when you do it for fun, mix in with this sort of community, and especially like in New York City, there's this like sort of hyper, like, let me get that first mindset. Like, I want to be there first. I want to be the first one to get it. That's gamification right there. And that's what we're going to really, elevate with the Canvas app. And then the third thing is, we're going to really work closely with street art festivals to use the Canvas app to elevate these festival experiences. So it's a lot of cool things that's going to be baked into this app. A lot of it has been years in the making. And finally coming up with an Android app as well.
When is 2.0 coming out? Do you have any targeted release date yet?
My partner, Lauren, I'm like always like the gunslingy guy. I just kind of just definitely next year for sure. I want that. I want the app finished, the version 2.0 completed by late summer next year for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, just in time for that fall hunting season.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of really awesome street art festivals. That's a lot of them has been sort of pushed towards like the later end of the year. So we definitely want that app to be ready for those, and even like for Miami next year as well.
So are you guys looking to raise money? Are you looking for investment? I mean, obviously this would be a great sponsorship opportunity for corporations and
yeah, me and my partner Lauren, we're very thoughtful around that, especially Lauren, very shrewd when it comes to when's the right time. A lot, we kind of actively held off on raising. We've had conversations with angel investors who were interested, but I think there's a couple of things that we needed to do, and certain success metrics that we wanted to meet, so that we don't walk into a table like, "Hey guys, can you kind of invest?" We want to kind of like lay our hands on the table and say, "This is going to change the world, and this is why." Right?
Yeah.
And I hate the change the world thing; it's kind of cheesy, but it's going to transform. It's going to transform the way people consume art in in different cities. And
that's change of the world.
Yeah, but and back to that, we next year, without a doubt, we're definitely aiming to get into serious conversations now. We've been able to bootstrap and support ourselves up to this point. Even especially in the early end, like we put a lot of our pocket money into this. When you believe in something, that's what you got to do. We put a ton of money and time, and it's working out even at the level that it is now. Just to see people able to experience street art and just learn more about the artists and add murals and be part of this documentation, I think at that baseline is really, really cool. So next year, real serious conversations with angel investors, and possibly maybe a crowdfunding campaign possibly for that.
Interesting.
Because I think the crowdfunding part is interesting because it allows us to do something really fun with our community while allowing them to be part of this sort of investment, as opposed to being,
give them ownership.
Because that's what street art is public. So that was the idea around crowdfunding.
I mean, not ownership in terms of shares, but ownership emotionally.
Emotionally, yeah.
We should probably clarify that.
Right. Just make that clear.
Yeah, we get into those forward-looking statements and things, and that's just never a good idea.
I know, somebody's gonna be watching this, like taking notes, like, wait a minute.
That's a great entrepreneurial story. I love it. And if somebody wanted to get involved with you or find you guys, what would they do?
Send me an email, ralph@canvasart.com, or just go to canvasart.com, the website. We're pretty active on Instagram. We're trying to be, at least. You could just drop us a DM. But I think for us,
what's your handle on Instagram?
Canvas Art, and CANVS. There's the second A is we got rid of it. So CANVS, Canvas ART art.
Okay.
I think the big thing for us right now is just continuing to grow our community. We have a lot of mural hunters that are joining, and it's a really great early play too, because the mural hunters who join now are going to definitely benefit once version 2.0 comes out, especially when they have loaded, a good amount of murals on the platform. So it's, I tell you, mural hunters better join now. Now is a good time.
Sounds great, man. Well, thanks, Ralph, so much for being on. I had a ton of fun using the app. I encourage everybody to go check it out. And I guarantee when you start looking for murals, you'll find all sorts of murals you pass by every day that you never really noticed until you started looking. And there's just so much cool artwork out there. So get involved.
Get involved and support your local artists. Find out who's your local artist and, support them, follow them. At the minimum, follow them. Get some art. Be inspired. It's the art is it's the reflection of the community. It's a reflection of us. So I really, really encourage you, support your local artists.
Well, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This was fun.
Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you just got a moment, please click on that subscribe button because, that helps the channel a ton. And I will see you in the next one.